Hello, stroke warriors everywhere. This is Ralph Cortese. Welcome to our show today. We're diving into a topic that's really cool. I know a couple people that have tried out this company's devices and they love them. So I was excited to get to talk to you. Today's guest is Matt Rigby. How you doing, Matt?
Doing well, Ralph. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm glad you came. Um, I understand you have an OT background.
I do. I actually am an occupational therapist by training. Was in the clinic for a while and then transitioned to the industry side or the vendor manufacturer side.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And you jumped into a commercial leadership role with what, Binus and Barrett Medical, right?
Yeah, I mean, I started my kind of sales role with Johnson and Johnson and then transitioned to BNS where I kind of moved up and became a leadership, role at that company. There were a lot of opportunities there, so I was pretty fortunate to be there during that time.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And now you're a chief commercial officer for Barrett Medical, right?
I am, yeah.
And Barrett Medical's where?
We're based in Boston. We do,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so we do all of our design, engineering, manufacturing, all right there, locally in Boston.
Nice.
Yeah.
I, I'm always curious to find out why people do things. What was your passion for bringing rehab um, into robotics?
Well, I'm fortunate I didn't have to, start that off, but I got to ride on the coattails of a lot of other industry leaders. I love tech, and I started at J&J dealing with really high level technology. I went to Bioness to do more technology. And Barrett just kind of fits that. They're a leading robotics manufacturer in the space of rehabilitation, which is my background. So it's just comes together well, like chocolate and peanut butter, I guess.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm a Reese's fan, so I
Oh,
love
love
that
it.
comparison.
Best candy.
Yeah, me too, with too much.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, so what first drew you to occupational therapy? Let's go back a little while.
Yeah, that one's pretty easy. So I started college in engineering thinking I was going to be a mechanical engineer because I really like mechanical stuff and tools and building things. And I got through the first year of mechanical engineering and realized that I likely was going to end up sitting in a cubicle or an office in front of a computer station. And I randomly took an anatomy class, and it was the greatest class I've ever taken. It was amazing, life-changing. And that let me realize I wanted to do something more on the, biology or medical side. Um, as I was doing that, I decided to explore it, and there was an opportunity to be a therapy aide for occupational and physical therapy. And I took that opportunity, and the next thing I knew, I was surrounded by therapists who were willing to kind of coach me and mentor me up to uh, go into a program and become a therapist myself.
Wow. Um, what was your early work like with stroke and neuro patients? Did you start out with stroke and neuro, or did you phase into that?
That's a great question. So clinically, again, I got really fortunate that at the time I was starting my career, there was a lot of opportunity to cross cover, and meaning I was able to work in the orthopedic clinics, specifically spine, which is related to neuro. I also was pretty much focused on pediatrics, so I did a lot of pediatric neurologic treatment, and then worked for adult rehab where we had spinal cord injury, stroke, post-stroke, and some other areas. So I got to see pretty much the run of where a therapist would be clinically practicing. And neuro to me was the most interesting because, that you hear it a lot. I'm sure some of your listeners have heard this, but a stroke is not a stroke is not a stroke. In other words, every patient who has a stroke is so different in individually in their clinical presentation that to me seemed more challenging and more invigorating than maybe an orthopedic practice where you do have a lot of standards that you can apply and the injuries are a little more straightforward.
Yeah, I found in my therapies. I had my stroke 9.5 years ago. I didn't know if you knew, but
No.
I found in my therapies that there's a difference between physical therapy and neurophysical therapy.
Yes, yes. And
Yeah.
taking nothing away from ortho, when you get the right orthopedic therapist, they are a different breed as well. But it wasn't the area I wanted to dive into. I wanted to go into the neuro side more. So
Again, my curiosity of why people do things. What was the deciding factor for neuro? I mean, what was your aha moment?
actually it came when I was working with children at Primary Children's Hospital in Salt Lake City, Utah. So we would
Uh,
get such a varied group of patients, traumatic injuries, congenital injuries or congenital issues. I think what drew me into that is that the children I was dealing with or helping would would recover at such an incredible rate, and they would achieve these milestones and goals that I don't think even we always realized they could do. And it made me realize the human capacity for that recovery. And then that kind of got me down that road. And then when I started to work more with adults, I realized that even though we don't give them credit for it, them being you and me, because we're that age, um, that capacity is still there at some level. And so maybe you do more to get it out. Maybe it takes longer. But that challenge, I think, is really what drew me in.
and again, it amazes me because the neuro people, to me, seem to like to be able to do the individualization
Yeah.
because most of the other therapies are checklist. Put you on a protocol, and this is what you do.
Yeah,
I had therapists like that. Put me on a bike and walk away.
it
And it's
works.
not like that for neuro.
Well, I think also there's the factor that in neurology or in neurotherapy, we don't know, well, we know how much we don't know, and it's a lot. And so
Yeah.
we can't just say, yeah, we have the solution, we have the cure. We're always striving to get that next incremental gain or next, study that shows us one thing that can make our practice better. And I think knowing what we don't know and knowing that there's so much yet to learn, and we learn it from our patients. So I think that
Yeah.
part of it, you kind of go on that journey with them. You never just know how to treat every patient. You're learning through your whole career.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, what motivated the shift from hands-on clinical to technology?
It's actually, I appreciate you asking the question. It was a really stark moment for me. So I was running a clinic that did specialized seating for wheelchairs. And there is a woman named Karen Kangas. She's based out of Pennsylvania. She was speaking, and she's a very progressive kind of theorist and clinician on seating systems, primarily for children. So I went to see her speak at the seating symposium. And while I was there, I walked through the vendor booths at the conference. Obviously, they're always there. That's where the money goes to support those conferences.
Yeah.
And I really didn't know much about the vendor side of our business. And I ran into a guy who was from Johnson and Johnson, and he and I just struck up a conversation. And through that conversation, he realized that I had read about their product, was excited about it, was waiting for it, and that I knew more of the application that I would do with it than he did because he's a sales guy and they hadn't launched yet. And that conversation ended with him just saying, would you be interested in coming to meet with us and interview with us? And that led to a job opportunity to go into the industry and be on the sales side, which I'll admit felt odd at the time because I was a pediatric therapist. So to go to the other side, the dark side. But that was the moment when I transitioned, and within about 3 months, I had left the clinic and was working for Johnson and Johnson.
Wonderful. And now you're with Barrett Medical
Yeah.
and the BERT system. So what sets Barrett Medical in particular apart and a rehab robotics space?
There are a few things that set us apart, primarily the fact that we control and own the entire process. So in other words, our team in Boston does all of the design work on the software and the mechanical engineering side. So we don't have to rely on subcontractors or partners for that. We do it. We also own the entire and run the entire manufacturing side. So everything that our customers buy from us is built in-house in Boston. We don't subcontract that out. So
Nice.
on that side, I think we have good control over the quality of the system that we produce. On another side, because we control everything, we control the content that we produce in the software. We're able to respond very quickly to customer requests. So if we get a request for a certain type of activity, we can create that. So I think having total control of it is probably the key to our success. Also, our company's been in business for 37 years.
Yeah.
So we're not new to building robots. And in fact, we don't have time here, but you could argue that we've basically invented a lot of the innovation and systems that exist in rehabilitation robots right now. So I think having that legacy knowledge and the fact that we are one of the, foundation companies developing safe human interface in robotics kind of gives us the ability to produce a better product, I believe. So,
And it sounds very individualized to a certain extent on what you do for your clients that buy your products. I'm very curious about, I never got the chance to go over to Spark Rehab and see it, but what is the BERT system and how does it help stroke and TBI survivors?
so BERT is very simply a robotic system or tool that a clinician can use to basically start a patient earlier on activities that will benefit them when they're very, very close to their injury or right after, but then also allow them to get more out of each of those sessions or movements. Because BERT provides support physically to the limb that's weak or paralyzed, and then provides facilitation through movements that we want to do functionally. And then as the patient progresses, we can change that to be more of a coaching model where the robot can provide resistance for resistance and strength training. So it really can take a patient from very early on to as far out as they are post-injury and meet them where their physical capacity is. The other part to that is that we are able to address a lot of the cognitive issues that patients are struggling with. So processing, um, you know, problem solving. We can present challenges to patients, even cognitively, who don't have a physical limitation, and help them to start coming back from those cognitive issues that come from a neurological injury.
Hmm. Um, and I'm assuming this is off completely off topic, I guess, but I'm also assuming based on what I've heard about BERT from the people that have used it, is that you don't believe it's as good as it's going to get. I
Oh,
mean, so many of us hear that and and
I
are,
are
yeah,
you speaking to the what a patient can achieve, or you're speaking to our level of technology currently?
what a patient can achieve. I
Right.
mean,
So if I was happy with what patients can currently achieve in the timeframes that we give them, I would probably I shouldn't be in this business. We're very greedy, and we're all looking for that next thing that's going to make recovery come faster and become more complete. So, you view it in two different ways. You either recover from something and go back to the way you were, or you compensate for it. And I think, very few of us, probably none of us in our field, are happy with compensation level results. We need them to be functional, but ultimately we're all looking to go back to what was, our previous level of function and independence. So yeah, I think we're far short of what we'll be able to achieve in the next, decades, but trying to use what we have currently in our toolbox as, to its full effect.
when it, one of the great parts about BERT is it supports neuroplasticity and engagement in the therapy with the provider and the patient and the product.
Right. Yeah, so one of the biggest limitations currently for, optimizing neuroplasticity process in a patient is really the environment they're in for medical care or the environment they're in for home or the limitation on the time that they can be engaged into an activity. So, very simply, a lot of the studies right now tell us that we need to be doing more repetitions and more functional movements, or what we term mass practice. And a robotic system allows us to get more of that engagement and movement in the same amount of time that we're typically seeing in patients. So it's a very simple kind of equation of achieving more in the same or less period of time. So that's what robotics let us do. The other biggest thing is providing safety. So a lot of the reasons, one of the reasons patients don't begin doing more advanced movements or get as much out of therapy as they want is we also have to provide safety. So safety for the patient and safety for the therapist when they start moving. And there's a lot of risk when you start moving someone who's weak or has limited motor programming or patterning. A robot allows you to have that safety within the system. And you see this in our industry in both gait systems for walking and upper extremity systems. But it also allows the therapist to feel safe, that they can protect their own body while they're interacting with that patient. And what we see is that when they have that level of safety because of the technology, the therapist is actually willing to go further and do more for that patient because they don't have the concern of protecting their own safety.
One of the things I notice in therapies is the more relaxed and more um, engaged you are, the better your recovery becomes. That's how I see this BERT system, at least from the people that I've talked to that have used it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's designed to be very seamless in the therapy session. Our goal is that if a patient forgets they're in the system as they get into the activity and the engaged movement, we have a lot of patients who will tell us, I forgot I was even in the system. I just felt like I was just moving more freely. And that's a design goal for us.
Absolutely. That's wow. You've scaled up across the US and globally. How have you done that?
Well, we've done it with a lot of airplane flights and a lot of effort. In the US, our business is growing at a, triple digit rate. So we've been very fortunate that the clinics and the larger health systems in the US recognize the value of the technology. And so we've had really good success in the US. Um, we leveraged that globally. So in the Middle East and in Asia and we're headed to Europe toward the end of this year to begin that. But in the
Nice.
other countries, we've been able to show them the success we've had in the US. And a lot of these countries partner with US based clinics or try to model the US approach to rehabilitation. And so that validates our technology clinically. And then we've been received pretty well in these other countries. My boss and I are headed to Asia to go to 3 countries to train on the system and meet with new customers. In about 2 weeks, we leave, and we'll be in Europe at the end of the year. And so, yeah, there's a lot of demand. China's an interesting one. We have several hundred systems in China being used with patients in hospitals. Their
Nice.
their population is large, and the robot offers them an opportunity to see more patients and get more out of a session. Um, and I've had the privilege of being in some of those hospitals to see that at work. It's a pretty amazing process.
There any recent success stories you want to share on well, first off, I guess I should ask, this is not a home-based product. It's a therapy or facility-based product, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it's a good distinction to make. Currently, we do not make a wearable robotic system.
Okay.
Um, They are out there, and we would like to move to something like that eventually. But currently, our technology is clinic based. Yeah.
Okay. So if people, survivors look this up after listening to us and want to try it out, they'd have to find a clinician near them.
They would. And that's where the discussion gets difficult. And I know you and I have discussed this previous to this interview, but
Yeah.
access to technology like this is the hard discussion, right? And it's because of the cost to deliver those services. And so, while you can find technology, very often the barrier is the cost to attend the therapy, the cost for the hospital to buy it. They may choose not to. So yeah, it is not unfortunately universally available across the US.
What's the feedback been like from clinicians, patients, and care partners even?
Well, if feedback is good, priorities for clinicians can be somewhat different from families and patients. So
Yeah.
clinicians, some of their priorities are really just managing their day to be able to get to every patient and optimize the time with them. So the feedback that we get is specific to how easy the system is to use for them, how quickly they can set a patient up, in under a minute, which similar technologies can take 10 or 15 minutes just for the setup time. The other thing is we are unique in that we offer very functionally based applications or programs so that the use of the robot will more closely match the functional goals a therapist will write for a patient. Um,
Okay.
Very often, a lot of these systems are gamified, right? We all want to play fun games and get more repetition, but we want to also have the ability to have it relate to functional tasks that are going to be appropriate for therapy. So the feedback we get is primarily how easy it is to use and how well it fits their clinical approach. Um, from patients, pretty universally, they just quite simply enjoy doing it. And I think you saw that when it was in your area and some of the
Yeah.
experiences that you heard of. Sometimes therapy can just feel like therapy, it can feel like hard work. And sometimes you want your hard work to just feel like fun and motivating and engaging. And so I think the best compliment we get is when a patient says, "Oh, I just had fun being in BERT and I just want to get in it again." And so that's kind of where that feedback sits. Yeah.
Yeah. Lene was just like that. She was so upset when she found out it was leaving.
The worst thing I do is allow someone to try it and then have to take it away.
Yeah. But the studies you're getting out and back from it, though, what kind of improvements are the people getting?
So, when you look at research-based outcomes for this type of technology, we're really fortunate that not just specific to BERT, there are hundreds of research studies and clinical studies done um, on the benefits of upper extremity robotics. Some of it specific to ours, some of it not. Um, but when you look at those meta-analysis reviews, an example would be the Cochrane review or the TESOL review. What we universally see is that any device that is fit correctly and gives that patient the motions against gravity and the cognitive engagement will be beneficial. When we look at specific research, there are some leaders in our field, Ego Krebs being one. I have to give, out of MIT, I have to give him credit. He really has led the charge on upper extremity robotics research. Um, Dr. Rankensmeyer, as well as another one, and Valdez, they really have led the charge on some of these robotic studies. And then if your viewers or your listeners are interested, David Rankensmeyer, his work on robotics combined with haptics, which is a really important component of robotics use. And our device does offer haptics with the activities. Those are kind of the areas that are really interesting now and accelerating in their development. Um, we have been very fortunate to be partnered with the Shirley Ryan Rehab Clinic in Chicago. They
Yeah.
helped us develop and improve our product for the last several years. And then also Spalding and Harvard in Boston have been really strong partners for us doing specific research to advance our technologies. So, I I think Dr. Paulo Bonato, I have to thank him profusely. He's done so much work out of Spalding, and he's on staff at Harvard to help us really advance the technology. So those would be some of the ones I would want to highlight. Again, most of the outcomes just show us that if we can utilize this technology in combination with what therapists are already doing for patients, then we see a better summation or better, combined
Yeah,
effect. So,
yeah.
yeah.
How do you see the robotic assisted rehab evolving in the next 5, 10 years? I mean,
Well,
it's evolving so fast now. It just amazes me. Where do you think we're going?
well, very clearly we are headed to smaller physical systems, which will allow us to expand their use. So you brought up a really good point that these are not as often available for home use. Now, on the lower extremity side, there are some companies making lower extremity robotic systems for patients who are either paralyzed or have difficulty walking. Those systems are still quite large and cumbersome and expensive.
Yeah,
And so the first thing I think we're going to see is the technology getting smaller and easier to use. And, we're part of that because we also make motor controllers. So Barrett, we are not just a medical product designer. We actually make advanced robotic systems and motor controllers. And our motor controller called the Puck is the smallest integrated motor controller in the market. And it allows other robotics companies that we partner with to make smaller systems so that they're truly usable in the real world. The other thing is there's no doubt AI is going to play a part in this as we move forward because as AI gets better and computer systems are better able to adapt to patients' movements and environments, I think we'll see better, more seamless integration of the technology into their regular lives, which ultimately that's where we need to go.
yeah. Are there plans to make these tools more accessible and in-home or rural settings, or where it's kind of as it goes?
Yeah, I mean, we always have that goal of trying to make it more accessible. That comes down really to cost and who we can partner with. We have done a really good job reducing our costs, although there are always factors in the market that come back and, take it the other direction, right?
Right.
So we're always trying to reduce the cost of the system to build. We also try to partner with organizations that will make it available in different settings. So we don't always want to go after inpatient rehab and outpatient rehab. We like to partner with, um, clinics that offer more of a community gym model for patients who are now out of therapy and don't have.
Oh,
And so, we haven't been as probably successful in the short run that we wanted to be, but we are talking with several of those types of providers where you might have a gym membership model in the month that you pay, and then you have access to all of that equipment. And one partnership we're really proud of, I'll highlight, is in Nashville, Tennessee, with a company called Healing Innovations. They make a lower extremity device, um, robotic system, and they also offer a community clinic. And so, one way that we've partnered with them is that we placed our robot in their clinics so that you can address walking and lower extremity plus upper extremity because we think what they're doing for that community is so valuable. So,
what innovations are you most excited about right now?
well, I am really, really excited about how to integrate VR and AR into robotic systems. And the reason is that currently we're relying very often on very limited visual feedback for the patient or a 2D screen representing a 3D space. And the research does tell us that a patient's movements are smoother if their perception of the space is more realistic in 3D. And so, some companies have already, they're diving into this and doing a really good job with it. I think that that's where the market is headed. Now, the limitation is the hardware is so large. And I really think we're going to see it come down to very, very slim, either glasses or smaller systems where a patient feels completely immersed in that VR world. And using AR can also use regular objects with our robotic system, real world objects they can grab, not just, generated by the computer. So I think VR and AR are probably one of the biggest integrations coming that'll make the systems more effective. And that's one of the areas I'm really focused on. The other one that would be, robotics are really difficult for the hand because the hand is small, but so much movement occurs in the intrinsic hand. So I think you're going to see an incredible amount of technology coming out that can robotically facilitate fine motor movements in the hand. And, we're definitely looking at options for that to add to our system.
There's so many out there, you have to be careful of who you're looking at because that the hand one is what I see all the time. There's
Yeah,
all kinds of hand.
and I think that on the robotics side, your hand is where probably we do the worst or least amount of benefit right now robotically. We're fortunate that with our, associations and connections and people that we work with on a research side, we're fortunate that we have some insights into some really good technology that will be coming down, maybe 5 years away. Um, and I think we're going to see a huge leap forward in that portion of the treatment.
Very cool. What's the most exciting part of your job?
Well, lately it's been getting to travel around and see hospitals in other countries and see how amazing the therapists are in those areas.
Oh,
Um, I mean, I'll share one experience recently. I was in Doha in Qatar, and they have a hospital there, Hamid Medical Corporation, that has one of the most stunning rehab centers that I've seen. They have every technology. Their therapists are certified in almost everything that you can be certified in. They're amazing. And yet,
oh,
a large population of their patients are refugees. The country takes in a lot of refugees.
I didn't know that.
And we got to see patients who were coming out of war zones um, and being treated in one of the highest tech facilities in the world. And for me, I think that takes it to a whole other level of just we do really good therapy, but when I see that level of treatment and intervention and technology offered to people who you wouldn't typically think would have access, they're doing a really good job of leading the way on that.
Very
So
cool.
that was probably one of the most rewarding experiences recently is to be able to see that firsthand.
Yeah. What's one myth about robotics, rehab robotics in particular, you want to bust?
A myth?
Yeah.
Well, that is an excellent question. I don't know if it's necessarily a widespread myth, but we do run into a lot of therapists who are worried to use it because they think it will be hard. So when they look at robotics, it seems like, well, it's so technical and it must be really hard to set up. And I just don't want to look stupid in front of my patient. I don't want to fail in front of my patient. So I'm just going to avoid it. So I think that's probably the biggest worry or concern or myth that we see in the clinic. And what's great is once we let them use our system and they see how simple it is and they can set a patient up in under a minute, we can overcome that and then we start to see utilization be very high because they know it's a very simple system, but provides a lot of benefit and reward.
There any one particular stroke recovery success that you'd like to share that stuck with you?
Oh, there are a lot. One in particular this year, we met a gentleman in San Antonio, Texas, who just the most hilarious, most fun-loving, positive guy. But he used the BERT after his stroke and was most motivated because one of our activities focuses on the activity of fishing. And fishing for him is his passion. It's all he wants to do. Every goal his therapist would ask him, what do you want to accomplish? I want to be able to get back on my boat and fish. He's retired and that's what he wants to be doing now. And so that one stuck with me because to sit in a room and listen to him genuinely explain the fun he was having, knowing it was also helping him recover, but take it to a level of just a simple task of fishing, which is so, enjoy
Basic.
and get away from the technical and the hard and the struggle and just absolutely enjoy fishing on the robot, getting ready to actually do a fishing trip when he discharged, which he did. So
Wonderful.
that one stuck with me. Yeah, he was a delight. He was a great guy. So,
What's your personal mantra or advice to stroke or TBI survivors?
oh, this one's easy. Don't ever, ever let someone tell you that you can no longer make progress. I don't
Thank
care.
you.
I don't care what the barrier is. I have family and close friends who live with the effects of neurological injuries, stroke specifically, every day. And if they had listened to the people who told them there was some limit or something they couldn't achieve, they should adapt to it, they wouldn't have achieved what they've achieved. So that would be the one thing that I would, if you remember nothing else from my conversation, that's what I would want someone to remember.
What we try and get across in every one of our shows.
I know. You do good work.
It's crazy. I mean, 6.5 years later, I was off the walker and cane. I didn't have the progress in 6 months, 12 months, and they told me that was it. But 6.5 years later, here I am running on a water treadmill.
Yeah, you continue to improve. So
Yeah,
there's never,
exactly.
never a point that you can't continue to make progress.
Where can people learn more about Barrett Medical or BERT or your other
That's
products? We haven't talked about any other products.
so we have two websites. If they want to look at our medical products, they can go to barrettmedical.com. Pretty easy. It is with two T's, Barrett. If they want to just look at our company at large and see all of our products, they can go to barretttechnology.com.
Okay.
And on our website, we have a button that they can click that says book a demo. Although if you want to book it, if you want to click it just to ask a question or find out more about something, we're fine with that as well. It just basically gives us a direct link to you. And then I would say, if you want to contact me directly, it's just matt.rigby@barrett.com.
Rigby,
Matt.rigby@barrett.com. Yeah, you can email me directly.
Barrett.com.
If I'm not the right person for your
And
question,
that's two R's too.
it is. It's
Oh,
2 hours and
yeah.
2 T's for Barrett. Yes,
Um, clinics can also book demos through this as well, right?
absolutely. Yeah, we have a very streamlined system. If they click the book a demo, we will get right back to them and we'll schedule and we'll bring them a robot to use in their clinic to trial. So,
Oh, how wonderful. Any upcoming appearances, events, or product launches that you want to share that maybe somebody can go to?
um, so we have a few events coming up. We will be at the AMPRA conference in Philadelphia. We'll also be at Medica in Dusseldorf. And then we'll be at Arab Health in January in Dubai.
Nice.
We always attend AOTA, which is the National Occupational Therapy Conference in the US, usually in the spring, April, around April. So we'll be there. Um, but yeah, those will be the kind of formal events that we'll attend and bring a system to if people are attending. So
And you usually post those on your website as well, correct?
yeah, we have an events page on our website and it tells all the conferences we'll be attending and the dates. You can actually reach out and schedule a time to get in the robot if you want to make sure it's available. But really, there's no need for that. We can always coordinate someone to get in. I know your exposure to it came from clinic out, reaching out to say, can we try it for a while? And we made that happen and got a bunch of patients into it so that everyone could kind of get a sense of what the system can do.
Yeah. And everybody was disappointed when they left.
I hate taking it away. I hate
I
taking
know, right? I
it
know. Anything else you want to add today, Matt? I mean, this has been incredible.
No, I think just to thank you for giving us a platform and for doing the work that you do. I've been very, very fortunate to be exposed to some of the best technology and the best clinics in the world. If I had stayed in one place as a therapist, I would not have become who I am and aware of what I've been able to see. And probably the last thing I'd leave you with is, a lot of the patients and clinicians that we've worked with, it's amazing how that relationship moves to colleagues and friendships. And I have friendships and colleagues that I'm now in contact with regularly for the last 2 decades from the work that we did in clinics.
Right?
And that's really the thing that you take away and keep forever from these types of experiences, because we're all pushing hard to a better recovery path for patients. And, the type of people who do that are just first rate, and I'm happy and proud to call them my friends and colleagues. So,
Way to close. Thank you. Matt, thank you for sharing your journey with us today. To all of our listeners, remember, your story matters, your recovery is worth fighting for, and you are never alone on this plan, never alone on this path. Catch the wave. You're a warrior achieving victory every day. Thank you all.